Hello, and welcome to another edition of Recycle. Don't be a waster. In today's episode, we want to talk about something that it probably isn't really recycling or fall under the traditional view of what recycling is, but it certainly is creation of something useful from something else that maybe isn't so useful. So if you're following the press or the news at the moment, you will be aware that there is a lot of focus on net zero and carbon reduction targets and all those things. And this is probably exacerbated also by the war in Ukraine and gas supplies into Western Europe and, fuel shortages and increased prices for fuel and gas. So one of the things a lot of countries have done for good and bad is invest significant funds into renewable energy. And I suppose Germany is probably leading the field in some of these activities, but with that, there are significant negatives. So Germany has significantly invested in wind, solar, and other renewable energy sources, which is great. But the problem with renewable is that sometimes the wind doesn't blow or the sun does not shine. And actually, even interestingly, during the recent European heat wave, apparently solar panels do not operate as effectively once it passes circa 24 or 25 degrees Celsius. So that's something interesting to bear in mind also. So the problem with renewable is that when it doesn't, when it's not sunny or when the wind doesn't blow, you need something else to turn on to give you that base load that fills the gaps. Fundamentally, this can either be gas, it can be, crude oil, it can be coal-based, it can be battery-based, so you can store the energy created by the renewables for when it's needed. One study I read recently suggested that Germany has not even planned battery facilities to capture 1%, not even in the planning stage, 1% of the energy needed. So fundamentally what this means is that when you rely on renewables, wind, gas, etc., or solar, you basically need to build two entire systems. One that is for when the wind blows, etc., and one is when it doesn't. And clearly this leads to significant geopolitical issues that we're seeing in Germany at the moment and Western Europe in general, whereby the Nord Stream gas pipeline is creating significant issues for all concerned, and whether Russia will turn off gas or not for political leverage. So, pardon me. So this is where we step in and talk about a potential savior, which is called biomethane. Biomethane is very similar to biogas, which we've discussed in a previous episode, and it really is the breakdown of human waste, human feces from the sewage works. When that breaks down, it creates methane, hence it smells. You capture that methane and you can fundamentally burn it as a natural gas format to create energy. So I suppose we ask, the fundamentals as to how that work are quite simple, but, how much of this stuff is there? The studies I've read suggest that every Australian state has more than enough human waste, before we even get into animal waste, to completely meet 100% of the energy needs, of those states at this point in time, which is pretty amazing. Fundamentally, you need facilities where this waste would be let decay. You'll capture that gas, and that gas then can be stored in the existing gas storage and infrastructure systems that we have in place in modern countries already. Even in Sydney, companies like Gemina and also Sydney Water are turning on or about to turn on some facilities that will, I suppose, operate as test runs for this stuff. And they'll capture the energy and use it to power homes and businesses throughout Sydney. So the great thing about this also is that you can store the gas in the existing infrastructure, where we have gas at the moment is mostly brought, even though Australia has a lot of gas domestically, particularly in Victoria, but it's not being used at the moment. Most gas is brought from overseas. This obviously would be a completely indigenous or domestic gas supply, and with it you can store it and use it when you need it. So it provides that baseline power that that we need without investing significantly in massive new infrastructure such as solar batteries or relying on nuclear facilities or coal or gas. So to me, it sounds very interesting. It's a real win-win. At the end of the day, as long as our human population doesn't collapse, we will have a never-ending supply of this waste. And realistically, that waste will probably be in line with our energy requirements. As the population grows, I assume the waste we produce will grow also. So, every cloud has a silver lining. And as we do produce waste, maybe it will help us produce clean energy also. At the end of the day, this waste has to decay somewhere. The energy will go somewhere, so we may as well use it to power our lifestyles and our economy and create jobs. So I think it's very interesting. We'll also publish a blog on this topic on waster.com.au. And we look forward to see what you think. So we'll leave it there today. And remember, recycle. Don't be a waster.